Alrighty, welcome back to another tutorial. In this one, we're going to be exploring creating a second brain with Claude Code and Notion. On the right here, I have a table and a diagram that Claude Code created, which kind of maps out generally what an architecture could look like for something like this, and mapping the brain equivalent to what a digital equivalent would be. So you have kind of an input layer, which are your sensors. That could be like a capture inbox in Notion. You have memory storage, which could be a knowledge base in Notion. In the brain, you have the cognition, the processing part. There's an emotional part, there's an autonomic part. So the idea is I'm just thinking about how I can map a digital version of my brain with Notion as a kind of key part of that, and then Claude Code as a key part of that as well. So I'm not going through the whole idea around what this architecture could look like. This particular video is going to be experimenting with one aspect of what this second brain flow could look like. In particular, it is around a capture layer and then an organization layer. So one use case that I see for integrating Claude Code and Notion is you could use Notion as like a way to, like a unstructured inbox, like a messy, unorganized inbox, which you can just capture a range of different things, like notes, web clips, bookmarks, whatever. It's just kind of, you just throw it in there, and then you can use Claude Code to kind of go through that inbox and then move it to the correct location, because it can reason about where it should be based on X, Y, and Z. So this part of the architecture is what we're going to be looking at today. And this is what it translates to in like an actual workflow. So as always, we start with a prompt with Claude Code. This one is process my inbox. That's going to trigger a process inbox skill that I have created. And what that will do is Claude Code will then query our inbox, and we'll see the different inbox items that we have. Currently we have 50 in there as part of this demo. AI is going to reason about kind of what they are and where they potentially should be based on some of this criteria here at the moment. And then once it does its reasoning, it will then create those items in the correct database. So we've got a task database, we've got a projects database, and I've created recently a knowledge base database. And the inbox is also a new database. So since my previous video, there's now an inbox database, and now there's a knowledge base database. So it routes the item to the correct place, and then creates these things into Notion. So what this looks like in Notion is this. So I've created the knowledge base. One second. I've created this knowledge base database. Currently there's nothing in there. And then I have the inbox to the left-hand side here, and there's currently a bunch. If we zoom in here, you can see there's a bunch of kind of random things. There's some like URL links, there's a bunch of different things. You could imagine that the inbox could be populated from different sources. It could be populated manually, it could be populated from within Claude Code itself. You could be working on a code base, you could just have a random idea pop into your head, and you could imagine you have a skill where you like, capture this to the inbox or add this to the inbox. And other sources could also populate this inbox. But we've got 50 random ones in there, and I've created a view for projects, tasks, and knowledge, because these should be funneled into these once we trigger the skill. And I filtered it by created today. So when we run the skill, this inbox should go to 0. It should empty. And then these should be filtered based on what was created today. So it won't show any of the other projects or any of the other tasks. I'll only show the ones created as part of this demo. Let me just quickly, oh yeah, that's fine. Okay, so I think we're ready to go. I'm not going to go into how to set up the integration because that's done in previous ones, but you will need to integrate, get your Notion integration key and add it to your local project so that the skills can actually use the Notion API in order to query it and to mutate it. Okay, so that's all good. We're going to go to our IDE real quick. This is a skill that I created. So as mentioned, we went through this workflow already about what it does and the routing logic. So Claude Code helped me create this. So yeah, that's ready to go. I think we can go and test it now. So CD into the project where your skills are scoped to. Start up Claude. And then we can, as you can see, we've got 78% of our weekly limit. So hopefully we don't run out. We shouldn't. Hey Claude, how's it going? Can you please use the process inbox skill to process all the inbox items and add them to the correct database, whether it be projects, tasks, or knowledge-based database, please? So we'll go. Go. So what we'll do, I can't remember if I set these up as sub-agents to run these all in parallel, but we will see. And this formatting's a bit weird. I might actually remove the sidebar because it looks a bit funky when I do it in split view. Okay, hopefully we don't run into any issues. So it's querying the inbox first to see what's in there. So hopefully if this works well, we'll have a couple of, okay, found 50 inbox items, so that's correct. Going to analyze them and categorize them. Obviously you can imagine this as part of the workflow. Okay, so what's it got here? It thinks based on the analysis that there's 18 items that should be tasks, 6 that should be projects, and 26 that should be items with these particular tags. So as you can see here, it's going through those already, and it looks like it is doing it sequentially as opposed to using sub-agents to do them in parallel. But it's still working reasonably quickly. So only tasks created so far. So it must be working from top to bottom. All of these. So obviously when you run this normally, you probably won't be sitting here watching it do its thing. You probably would have this as part of a skill that maybe runs each day or runs when you open a project. You know, you can kind of use a skill to make this kind of more automatic so it just happens in the background. But obviously for this demo, we're watching it to see what is happening. So you definitely notice that it's a bit slower when it's not using the sub-agent. So we've created the projects here. Yep, a few different projects, a few different tasks, no knowledge base items yet. Okay, project's done, tasks all done. Now it's moving on to the knowledge base. You can see that the inbox items aren't kind of decreasing. And the way I've set it up is that it creates new ones in the right database, and then it'll go ahead at the end and kind of archive these. So that's kind of the last step in the process. So we'll create the null. If we zoom out, you should see the different tags. So it's gone ahead and added the source. So when you add a new inbox item, it can kind of, it knows, has some awareness around where that came from. Whether they're kind of web links or self-added, etc. There's a topics, and then there's a type. Claude kind of made this as part of the demo, but the idea is like you could have like this is a simple sort of knowledge base, but you could have a system where items have kind of children items and they can kind of reference each other. So there's a particular knowledge base organization style, I can't remember the name of it, might have it on here. There, Zetul Kastan. I might have a look at that as a way we can implement that properly in Notion. I've tried to do that in the past. There's like a very particular way to organize your notes so that there's kind of this good relational as a good way to relate different notes to each other in a good way. I tried to do that in the past and it didn't really work because there's a bit of manual effort involved. So potentially Claude Code could fill that gap and solve that problem by it reasoning about all that stuff and applying all those relationships basically automatically. So if you define the structure around how the knowledge base would work, how you want to organize that. So there's different ways of doing that. Zetul Kastan, sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, is one way of doing that. So I might experiment with that just to see what that would look like and if Claude actually would do a good job at solving that problem. Okay, all KB items created, knowledge base items. So I think it's now going ahead and deleting the inbox. So as you can see, it should be getting down to inbox 0, and now we're inbox 0. Cool. So that took 6 minutes. It's processed 50 items in the inbox. Kind of reasoned about what was in there, reasoned about what our Notion database looks like, what databases exist, what tags exist, etc. And then created those inbox items into the correct database. So that's pretty interesting. I guess the primitive there in terms of the capability that Claude Code is really good at for something like this is taking unstructured, unorganized data and then making it structured data. And in the case of Notion, that could be like moving it to different pages or adding different tags or moving it to a completely different database. So projects, tasks, knowledge base, etc. So anything relating to unstructured to structured, unorganized to organized, Claude can come in there and fill that gap for you. And so I'm going to continue to pursue this. The idea around a second brain, this is just one aspect of a second brain in Notion, is kind of you capture stuff and then you organize it in a particular way. So I'm going to keep riffing off this and see how I go. If you have any ideas, let me know in the comments around what a second brain could look like with Claude Code and Notion. And yeah, I might kind of continue to work on this for a little bit because it's quite an interesting idea and something that I've always been interested in, but just whenever I started, it just got a bit too hard and you had to be very particular with how you set it up, or else it would just get messy. And once it gets messy, then it's like kind of a bit pointless in using it. All right, thanks for watching, and drop any ideas below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.